Hi everyone, welcome to my session on Microsoft Defender, stopping attacks and reducing security operations workload with XDR. My name is Mike and I'll be your presenter for this session. Before we begin, I want to do a little introduction about myself. I'm currently the Managing Director for BIM Cybersecurity, and I was previously with PwC Myanmar as a Chief Digital Officer taking care of digital trust and transformation assurance business units. I'm also a certified board director with Myanmar Institute of Directors, and I also volunteer and serve on the board of directors for British Chamber of Commerce in Myanmar. I hold various corporate governance, information security, and risk management certifications, as you can see here. Our team today will be Tian Yin, who is our security solutions consultant, myself, as well as Oka Cho, who is our technical solutions consultant. Our organization, BIM Group of Companies, wanted to digitally transform Myanmar by having 5 business units, namely BIM Consulting, BIM Advanced Technology Services, Engineering Solutions, BIM Trainings, and last not least, BIM Cybersecurity, which we will be doing the presentation today. Now, as we all know, we're in an era of unprecedented change. Many organizations face constrained resources as they navigate new business challenges. Virtually overnight, companies have seen the need to accelerate digital transformation, especially because of pandemics like COVID, right, which ensures that worker productivity and response to rapidly changing customer expectations. The expectations have changed. As the technology, business models, and overall landscape evolves, the way people work has fundamentally changed. We no longer expect to access a myriad of corporate resources solely from the office and on company-owned devices. Very much, complex in this environment. In many ways, every company is now a technology company, as said by the chief executive officer of DBS Bank. They said, we're not a bank, we're a technology company. So providing services for their customers and employees, technology become at the core of the foundation. And as security teams are also changed, and they are being tasked and charged with protecting an ever-growing digital footprint, or we call it digital estate. And they now face an added pressure to also cut cost. Now, taking all of this together, the trends that we have outlined represent a shared challenge to the IT security. Organizations find themselves responsible for protecting a crisscrossing web of technologies, and many of which may not be outright owned or managed by them, or even their partners. With so many devices, different user groups, and so much corporate data at risk, and traditional perimeter-based security controls and models simply doesn't work. You can't keep up with the sophistication of today's threats. And neither can they provide the visibility and control that they need to secure today's highly distributed and hypermobile network environments. So we can no longer believe everything behind the corporate firewall is safe. We can't assume that either. But we need a security model that is better adapts to the reality of the world that we live in. So how do we determine the risk that are exposed? Or are we even having any risk at all? So we look at 3 different fundamental areas for an effective risk management and risk assessment program. We look at the people to ensure that there is an adequate education awareness or cybersecurity awareness is in place. We look at the processes to ensure that there are adequate policies and standards that are being defined, and people know how to follow these policies without having to try too much. And of course, having a technology that works would definitely help, right? To ensure that the process has been effective in its implementation. When we look at the risk management lifecycle, an organization, a risk management program should be documented in a charter. Many organizations currently have a risk committee or risk charter that is in place. So what are the different components that we see in this risk journey? We see the asset identification. We need to manage our risk over time. We also need to have a life cycle activity of each asset, a digital asset that we have. The digital footprint needs to be carefully examined. We also need to support the overall business objectives without hindering too much with controls in place. Just enough and adequate controls so that the business can function and innovate. So we have risk analysis and risk treatment also in place of this risk management lifecycle. We can use standards, various standards that are internationally accepted, like ISO 27001 or NIST or ISO 31000, which is the risk management. Now, the risk management process is actually the risk identification, which comes in first. We need to really identify what are the risks that are currently the enterprise is facing. We will need to perform risk assessments. We need to determine what level of risk are we exposed to so that we can apply proper risk controls and procedures. And we can periodically review these risks, whether they still exist or they have been properly managed. So this is a very typical risk management process, which we will be using to adopt the XDR in the future. So the risk management program, the organization should establish some principles, the core principles that will enable the program to succeed. We need to have a predefined objectives. We need to understand what are our KPIs or objectives and key results, OKRs. We need to have a scope because every risk, you cannot be managing all the risk at all times. So we need to have a clear understanding of our scope. We need to have been given authority. We need to have a very clear lines of roles and responsibilities, and we need to have adequate resources given to this kind of program. And we need to have a policies that needs to be enforced. So with that, we transition into how do we move into a more technical approach of implementing such as zero trust. Let's face it, the enterprise actually have identities and devices and data in infrastructure and applications and networks all meshed together in this very small space. And to adopt this new reality, we need a new set of principles. We move away from the assumption of explicit verification. We adopt a policy-based least privilege access model, which is known as zero trust. We design with the assumption that every element of your system can be breached. So there are key principles of zero trust. The zero trust provides a modern security framework to manage the complexity of today's organization that we talked about earlier. A holistic approach to zero trust should extend through the entire digital estate, not just small fractions and silos. And it should serve as an integrated security philosophy and as an end-to-end strategy. You can do this by implementing zero trust controls and technologies across 6 foundational elements, which we talked about earlier. Now, cybersecurity as a business value driver will be the task of all the chief information security officers and even chief information officers of today. They include managing the budget or managing the return of investment or return of equity on what are the security investments that we have been delivered. We need to improve our workloads on security. We need to also increase the incident response and even to classify which constitutes an incident. And we need to streamline our internal processes. We need to also avoid the costly mistakes and efficient performance needed to perform using automation, right? So these are going to help us to manage our expenses and losses, managing the trust that we have with our customers, as well as to contain the damages, the impact that we're going to be facing from cybersecurity breaches. Now, building trust into protecting these digital assets will bring in a lot of confidence using proven best practices. We need to have actionable, simple to use, deep technical resources to design workloads that is showing the results, and basically knowing where to focus to optimize the workloads. Now, Microsoft Defender is able to achieve the extended detection and response capabilities because it allows you to do what we have discussed earlier. You're able to identify the identities of the people, devices, and all the entities and digital assets you have within the organization, the digital assets. You're able to see the visibility on all the devices and internal workings. You have visibility into the data. You have visibility and manageability of your infrastructure, as well as applications and network. Now we have Microsoft 365 best of breed security products that is serving the purpose end to end. Because identities can be managed by Microsoft Defender for Identity, endpoints right now can be managed by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and cloud apps can be managed with Cloud Apps Security or CASB. And then we have user data, which is a Microsoft Defender for Office 365. Now, please take note of some of the changes here with the previous names that are listed in the color below. We shift from individual silos to coordinated cross-domain security, providing the visibility end-to-end and the ability to manage the security incidents become greater with this suite of products. Now, Microsoft 365 Defender is actually an automated cross-domain security feature. You can also see that from a Gartner Magic Quadrant in 2021 May, that Microsoft is leader in the endpoint protection platform, surpassing all these vendors that are listed here. And it is actually a unbelievable feat within a couple of years that the endpoint protection has significantly improved, and it has product becoming a top product or the leader in this Gartner chart. It is very hard to achieve, and I think because of that, we're able to demystify some of the things like saying why Microsoft is the leader today, and it may be that a lot of people can assume that there are other products out there, but Microsoft leads the way. Now, what do we mean by leading, becoming a leader in the endpoint protection as well as the whole security lifecycle for XDR? Is because we're able to detect and respond across end user environments. What do we have? We have just now the earlier we talked about, the 6 areas that we need to look into building zero trust. And Microsoft 365 Defender does exactly that, right? Number 1 is stop attacks before they occur by reducing your attack surface, which is the number 1 most important thing. Prevention is better than cure. Now, when it even having some sort of attack has able to breach in, we're able to detect and automate that across domains and integrating that threat data for a rapid response. And even if it is an unknown malware or ransomware, we're able to detect using the behavioral analysis and using things like AI and machine learning. Now we have, if we're going to do a hunting across domains and creating custom tools using the unique experience and expertise, this is where this tool shines, right? We are able to also view alerts and remediate across the Microsoft 365 environment in a single dashboard. So these are the advantages that we have here. Excuse me. Now we have a cross-domain protection by having a Microsoft 365 Defender with Azure Defender, so that it completes the circle by providing not just the endpoints, but also the cloud resources that we have in the enterprise. Microsoft Defender is actually being able to do and perform extended detection and response because of this cross-domain protection mechanism. It will intelligently detect and respond from Azure and hybrid workloads. By looking at the SQL, the server VMs, the containerization, because these days we're not just looking at the mobile devices or laptops or servers or PCs or workstations. We're looking at things like IoTs. We're looking at cloud native services running in containers, right? So all of this will be able to be given intelligent detecting and response and proper response programs. Now, The extended protection on on-prem and multi-cloud for virtual machines and SQL database using Azure Arc is possible. And with the prioritize alerts, focus on what matters the most. Now that's become a really relevant response plan. Excuse me. Now, Azure Sentinel, which in our previous presentation, you have seen that it is an excellent SIEM tool to have a cloud-native, any data, any entity, using multi-cloud, as well as more than 100 partnerships using Microsoft Intelligent Security Association, right? Those are all the partners from cybersecurity industries that we can ever think of. It's a very cloud native, very much a cloud native, using any data, using artificial intelligence, sifting out through from millions of logs, and then using automation to basically respond to the threats. Now, we want to gain insights across the entire enterprise and visualizing and investigate the entire attack chain with the cloud native SIEM. The Azure Sentinel will collect the data. It will detect if there's anomaly against multiple runbooks. We're able to do the investigation through various methodologies, and we're able to respond to the incident effectively. Later on, we'll be showing a demo regarding that, right? So we collect the security data at the cloud scale and integrate with the existing controls and leverage the AI, et cetera, as well as responding rapidly with the built-in orchestration and automation tools. Now, we have a case study here. We'll be doing this in a live demo soon. Now, we have a security operations center responding to an attack using Microsoft Defender. We have established BIM Cyber Command Center. So essentially, it's based on NIST's framework on identifying, protecting, detecting, and responding to threats, including advanced persistent threats that these days are very common. Now, with the identify, protect, detect, and respond capabilities, we need to firstly look at how do we engage with our clients in terms of our well-architected engagement workflow. First and foremost, the first step is to actually know your customer in context. What are they really looking for? We're the service providers and solution providers, but in order for us to provide solutions, we need to actually understand our customers' real problems, right? So we envision it, we will validate our solution, we will commit to our solution as well as an implementation and onboarding our customer to use the products and services and solutions, and then we'll realize and we'll deliver the value. Remember my earlier slide about cybersecurity as a value, business value driver. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. Now we have key outcomes that we wanted to achieve by having opportunities really identified, and then we bring in our solution architects and resources to do an examination of the current security landscape and posture. And oftentimes in my next slide, as well, I'll be showing, you can see a different silos of different products, security products that are embedded within the organization, which actually hinders the detection and response capabilities. And that's when we can be using Microsoft to basically step up and leapfrog our XDR capabilities, right? So we can envision and we can have a customer and stakeholder sponsorships are really confirmed. They have a budget to approve, and then we'll do a technical deep dive into identify those recommendations, and we'll implement the plan, finalize and align, and then we have a customer implement the agreed plan, and then we do a platform operationalization and optimization. Now, this is a vendor complexity across the attack kill chain if we're using Lockheed Martin's cyber kill chain mechanism. This is a typical cyber incident story here. A phishing email comes in, opening an attachment, clicking on a URL, etc. You can see all this, lateral movement, things like that. A typical enterprise will need at least 3-4 if not more, tools or technologies to be able to perform end-to-end investigation and remediation today. Picture this with another potential, which is a Microsoft end-to-end threat protection and response. And email, obviously, we can use Defender for Office 365 if you're using Office 365 as an email platform, a communication platform. A phishing email comes in, clicking on the URL, the same story, but different results, right? We'll have the identities have been identified by Azure Identity and Protection, AID, as well as, you can have a Defender for Endpoint and Microsoft Cloud App Security, stopping the attacker from exfiltrating the data. So all of this can be achieved by using a single technology. The implementation time for the previous kind of technologies may take more than 6 months, whereas this kind of implementation can take less than 6 months to implement, and this solution definitely works. You can see that Microsoft 365 Security has consolidated all the dashboards and started having this portal, Defender Unified Portal, which, if you have a Microsoft 365 E5 licenses or any individual products of E5 license, you are able to see this dashboard. And if you have Microsoft 365 Defender dashboard, which, overall security state, your secure score, what are the actionable items, what are the outstanding devices, and what are the things that you need to do, where the device risks are. Remember our earlier slides about, risk management? So to identify risk, which is much, much easier by using a Microsoft 365 security portal. And that will allow, security investments to realize its benefits, and there will be a lot of returns coming up from the security investments. And I think management or senior management or board of directors should be fairly happy with this kind of results. Now, in a typical environment, you're going to have, say, 300 alerts. And in order for you to go into and categorize them on to becoming an incident, that would be a nightmare. And I think that, using Microsoft 365 Security, they're able to group them into a different risk rating, depending on the probability and impact. And we're able to do, say, deduce to 40 incidents. And the beauty of that automated self-healing feature is that those 40 incidents, about 75% of them can be reduced or automatically resolved. So we're only left with manual intervention of about 10 incidents. And even so, we're able to further automate this by, identifying with indicators of compromise, which we'll be demoing later. So this is a typical, alerts to incidents and automated self-healing features that we can see from here. Now, a lot of threat analytic reports, such as, for example, analysis of key incidents, the new high, impact emerging threats each month will be published. Say, for example, this screen is showing the sticky keys to be turned on, because without logging on, this feature can be invoked, and there could be a security exploit that can be done using command prompt or backdoor without even having to log into the system. So basically, we're having this threat analytic reports which are able to deter before the risk are even being exposed. Further into our case study, you can see that an attack story illustrated by having a very generic user called Bob, right? Bob is receiving a phishing email, and then he clicked on the document, and then the document actually invoked a URL or some sort of active script, runs the script, downloaded a malicious file, tried to install malware and connect to a C2 server, CNC server. And then the MetaPredator shell will run and start the data exploitation, stealing credentials, etc., etc. In here, you'll see the green lines are actually the ones that the logs will be collected by the SIEM product, which is Azure Sentinel. The logs also comes from Microsoft Defender for Identity, so you can see it here. whereas the blue lines represents the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, the XDR capabilities. What it means is that it will be able to isolate the device, an infected device. It will be able to run the antivirus. It will be able to restrict application execution and blocking them. And we can even perform live response by using Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So this is the flow of data into our the attack history illustrated. With that, I'd like to start with the demo of the extended detection and response capabilities with Microsoft Defender using Microsoft Defender and Azure Sentinel. All right. So here, I'll play the video. Let's see if it does. Yes. So let's explore this sample demo event on, Azure Sentinel and how do we begin hunting on a particular incident here. You can see that by looking at the incident, you can see there are two new incidents, multi-stage incident involving execution and defense, as well as multiple threat families detected on one endpoint. And obviously, we look into the security center and identifying through the noise what's important with the use of security alerts from the security center. It'll be able to tell you what are the active alerts, high, medium, low, as well as what are the next steps that we should be performing here. All right, with that, we look into the infected user Bob. And by looking at Bob's machine, we'll be able to see the overview of our, the environment by using the secure score. We can even see things like regulatory compliance or whether they're, PCI DSS, SOC, or ISO, et cetera here. Now, looking into the user Bob, we're able to see that he's using Windows 10. We're able to see the alerts and activities timeline. We check the timeline with a utility from this Azure Sentinel Insights about an incident and user activity by what we call UEBA, right? User Entity Behavior Analysis from the Sentinel dashboard. The UEBA inside the organization identify threats and potential impact and challenges to identify a compromised entity or a malicious insider. Has always been a time-consuming and labor-intensive process. According to a well-known cybersecurity research center, it will take an average of over 200 days to be able to identify that there is a breach. And sifting through alerts like this, right, connecting the dots and actively hunting all adds up to a massive amount of time and effort expended with very limited or very minimal returns on the efforts, and possibility of sophisticated threats simply evading discovery increases monthly, if not weekly. There are techniques available, right? Particularly elusive threats like zero-day, which will be demoed here, and targeted and APTs or advanced persistent threat can be most dangerous to the organization, making the detection even more critical. So to solve the problem of the UEBA capability, and this Azure Sentinel eliminates the drudgery, so uncertainty and all this thing to be able to perform an XDR reality. Here we can see a detailed investigation feature from Azure Sentinel to retrieve all the related information about the incident. Then we examine the details, information about every suspicious processes, for example, and logon script registration. So we can see here that you can do an deep dive into the technical details of what this logon script registration is doing in the system. We also look at the precise necessary information occurred using the Kusto query language, or KQL, where analysts can hunt all the required data for investigation. Bear in mind that KQL is scriptable, which means this will be your detection language, or detection rules can be a value add to your customers as well. So as a system integrator, you'll be able to do that. When we look at the Microsoft 365 Home, you see the threat analytics feature, which we talked about earlier, right? Using inside the Microsoft 365 Security Center. So to conduct the latest threats that can give high impact and threat summary through alerts for the entire organization, the latest threats, the high impact, and the threat summary. So we do not have any threats alert with the active alerts here. You can see the threat management capabilities and email security. For example, if these vulnerabilities are indeed present in your environment or organization. By looking at the dashboard, you can further see the threats and vulnerability management in terms of the summary for your exposure score. Right now, the exposure score is 16, and we have an improved score, and the remediation activities or top vulnerabilities that you wanted to them to see are all listed here. You can also see the top events, like the new configuration was added to the security controls, etc. Right? Now, by looking at how do we do XDR, so remediation becomes, these are the proactive things that we can do to block JavaScript from running, block Office applications from running with highly impacted potential threats. So here you can see Bob is actually being infected, and he has a lot of things going on here. One of which is, of course, to be listing down his high risk activities. What are those? And to going into the details of either by category, we can sort it by category, or we can sort by severity. And we can see that by looking at it, there is an anomaly detected in the ASEP registry, which stands for Auto Start Extension Points. Whenever Bob reboots, it seems that this malware, the zero-day exploit, which we specifically created for this event, you can see that it has modified the registry. It has added some of the registry run keys in the startup folder and things like that. So you're able to go in and see using MITRE attack framework, right? So it will have a better coverage and integration of Microsoft Defender for endpoints and Microsoft Defender for Office 365 here. So these are very much the detections that we can perform using the Microsoft 365 security. And we can also see the detailed timeline, when it was executed, when it was loaded into the memory, when it was being stored on our storage system, and so on. Right. By looking at the alerts here as well, that you can see that this particular suspicious zero-day attack has dropped a file. So basically, we can manage this alert by identifying it and what kind of classifications that we wanted to have, as well as what kind of comments that we wanted to classify it for. So let's go ahead and identify what kind of alert is this. So it's a suspicious registration of logon script. Obviously, this is highly unusual activity. We can see this is in progress, and it is not a false positive, it's a true alert, and it could be a malware. So we can identify that and we can save it here. Now we can always come back here and modify this with IOCs or indicators of compromise, which we'll be discussing later. So suspicious file has been dropped. Now we can perform live response, which allows the SOC analyst to investigate and handle threat in real time using a remote shell session. So we can run basic and advanced commands to investigate, for example, downloading the malware sample. For example, this particular ignite0day.exe, we want to download it, run it in a sandbox environment, and we wanted to perform what kind of tasks they're doing. We wanted to investigate further. We want to do a reverse engineer, things like that. So we're able to download that particular malware into our system and analyze the suspicious executable files, and we can also run like I said, run a customized PowerShell scripts and perform remediation steps to achieve the true XDR capabilities. Right? So this is a very neat feature, the live response command shell, and we can we can upload it to our library, and we can choose a particular destination of a directory, We can save it here. Yeah. So this actually is how a particular security operations center engineer or a security analyst will perform a live response on an infected machine, which is very much an awesome feature. We can also partner with, if this suspicious file that is being dropped is unknown to us, we can partner with Microsoft Threat Experts or MTEs who can be engaged directly from within the Microsoft Defender Security Center for a timely and accurate response. So the experts, MTA experts, will provide insight into better understanding of complex threats, the targeted attacks, and advanced persistent threats as well. So we can also add an indicator of compromise with a matching and essential feature in every endpoint protection solution. So this capability gives security operators and analysts and engineers to have the ability to set a list of indicators for detection and for prevention and response by blocking an executable, for example. So we can add custom IOCs for the new form of malware, including ransomware, the payload, and targeted attacks to prevent further threats into the organization. As you can see here, we can just click on the add indicator. There's 4-part steps that we need to do. So we can name the indicator as a 0-day give me a moment. We wanted to do a 0-day attack. Data 0-day. Should be 0-day attack. Yeah. And then describe the indicator description. You can put it in there. So basically, it's actually a malware. You can create next. And what kind of actions you want to do with this indicators compromise? We can say alert and block, or you can just allow only, or you can say alert only. So alert details, we can say, we can do a historical matching, or if not, then we can do a severity. We believe that this is a very dangerous malware. So in that case, we'll put it as high. And in terms of the category, we can say it is actually a malware. You can change from a number of different possibilities here. And then you can do a catch here, and you can apply this policy of the IOC response to all, right? And then you can do all machines, and you can do apply. So the new indicator was created. If and ever this ignite 0-day.exe is presented anywhere else in the platform, that will be alerted, and it will be blocked by this action inside the Microsoft 365 security. So with that, that will be the end of our presentation on Defender and Microsoft Defender, how we can achieve the extended detection and response capabilities using Microsoft technologies end-to-end. And that concludes our presentation and our session. And on behalf of BIM Cybersecurity and BIM Group, I would like to thank you very much for your attention and for this opportunity to present how we can achieve end-to-end incident response capabilities and XDR using Microsoft technologies. I'd like to thank you, and have a great day.